You know that moment when you walk into the kitchen expecting to smell fresh tea or food cooking, and there's just nothing? No scent, no signal, just silence. Most people brush it off. Maybe it's a cold, maybe it's age, maybe it's nothing. But what if that nothing is actually your brain trying to tell you something, years before any memory problem even begins? Doctors are now paying very close attention to something most people ignore: your sense of smell. And here's what's shocking. Research suggests that losing your ability to smell properly might be one of the earliest warning signs of Alzheimer's disease. Not memory loss, not confusion, not forgetting names, but your nose. Think about that for a second. Long before someone starts repeating questions, long before keys start getting lost in strange places, the brain may already be changing in ways you can't see, but you can feel, or more accurately, stop feeling. The scents you once recognized instantly, coffee, perfume, rain, food, start fading. And because it happens slowly, people rarely notice it until it's already advanced. And here's where it gets even more important. This isn't just about smell, it's about timing. Alzheimer's doesn't suddenly appear one day. It develops quietly, often 10 to 15 years before symptoms become obvious. That means your body may be giving you early clues right now, and most people are completely missing them. In this video, we're going to break down 13 early clues that doctors are now linking to Alzheimer's, starting with something as simple as your nose. Some of these signs are subtle. Some may seem harmless, but together they can paint a very clear picture of what's happening inside the brain long before diagnosis. So before you ignore that missing scent, before you assume it's just aging, take a moment to understand what your body might be trying to warn you about, because catching these signs early could make all the difference. It usually starts in such a quiet, almost unnoticeable way that most people don't even think twice about it. You walk into a room where food is cooking and something feels off. You know there should be a smell there, something warm, something familiar, but it's faint or missing completely. At first, it feels like nothing. Maybe your nose is blocked. Maybe it's just a temporary thing. Maybe you're tired. So you ignore it. Days pass, then weeks, and slowly that small change becomes your new normal without you even realizing it. The scent of your morning coffee doesn't hit the same way anymore. Perfume feels weaker. Even strong smells like smoke or spices don't feel as sharp as they once did. And because it happens gradually, your brain adjusts, convincing you that nothing is wrong. But here's what most people don't realize. Your sense of smell is directly connected to the parts of the brain responsible for memory and cognitive function. It's not just about enjoying scents, it's a deep neurological process. When doctors started studying early patterns of Alzheimer's, they noticed something surprising. Long before memory loss begins, long before confusion shows up, the areas of the brain linked to smell are often among the first to change. That means what feels like a small sensory issue might actually be an early signal coming from deep inside the brain. What makes this even more concerning is how easy it is to dismiss. People blame allergies, sinus issues, aging, even the weather. And while those things can affect smell, the difference here is consistency. When the change doesn't go away, when familiar scents stay dull or disappear entirely, that's when it becomes something more than just a passing issue. And yet, most people never connect it to brain health. They wait for memory problems to show up, thinking that's the first sign. By then, the process has often been happening silently for years. Imagine your brain trying to send a warning, but instead of words, it uses something subtle, like fading smells. It doesn't feel urgent, it doesn't feel dramatic, so it's easy to ignore. But in reality, it could be one of the earliest clues that something deeper is changing. Doctors are now encouraging people to pay closer attention to these small shifts, not to panic, but to become aware. Because awareness is what gives you time, and time is what most people lose without even knowing it. And what's even more unsettling is how this change can quietly affect your daily life without you fully realizing it. Smell is deeply tied to taste, so when your sense of smell weakens, food doesn't taste the same anymore. Meals you once enjoyed start feeling bland, less satisfying, almost empty. Some people begin adding extra salt or sugar without thinking, trying to bring back that lost flavor, not knowing that the real issue isn't the food, it's the signal from the brain. Over time, this can even affect appetite, mood, and overall well-being. But again, because it happens slowly, it doesn't trigger alarm. It just feels like life is becoming a little less vivid. There are also safety risks that people rarely consider. Smell is what alerts you to danger. Gas leaks, smoke, spoiled food. When that sense fades, you're no longer receiving those early warnings the way you should. And yet, many people adapt instead of questioning it. They rely more on routine, on visuals, on others around them, without ever asking why this change happened in the first place. That's how something serious can stay hidden in plain sight. Doctors have even started using smell tests as part of early cognitive screenings in some cases, because they've seen how closely this sense is tied to brain function. It's not about diagnosing Alzheimer's based on smell alone, but about recognizing patterns early. When smell loss appears alongside other subtle changes, like slight difficulty focusing, minor confusion, or changes in behavior, it begins to form a clearer picture. A picture that, if caught early, can open the door to better management, lifestyle adjustments, and medical support. The most important thing to understand here is not fear, but awareness. Losing your sense of smell doesn't automatically mean something serious is happening, but ignoring it completely removes the chance to catch something early. And early is where everything changes. Because once symptoms become obvious, options become more limited. That's why noticing these quiet signals, the ones that don't shout, the ones that don't scare you right away, can be more powerful than any late warning sign. And then there's the emotional side of it, the part most people don't expect. Smell is deeply connected to memory and feelings. A simple scent can take you back years in a second, a childhood home, a familiar place, a person you love. When that connection starts to fade, it's not just about losing a sense. It's like losing small pieces of your past without even realizing it. Moments feel less vivid. Memories don't trigger the same way. Things that once felt comforting begin to feel distant, almost out of reach. At the same time, the brain is working harder to compensate. When one pathway weakens, others try to adjust. This can create subtle changes in behavior. Maybe you become less interested in certain activities. Maybe your mood shifts slightly, or you feel a bit more disconnected than usual. These are not dramatic changes, not the kind that immediately raise concern, but they are noticeable if you look closely. And when combined with something like smell loss, they start to form a pattern that shouldn't be ignored. Family members are often the first to notice these small shifts. They might point out that you didn't react to a strong smell, or that your preferences have changed, or that you seem a little different in ways that are hard to explain. But because there's no clear problem yet, these observations are usually brushed aside. People laugh it off, make excuses, or assume it's just part of getting older. And that's exactly why these early signs can slip through unnoticed. What makes this stage so important is that it sits right before more obvious symptoms begin to appear. It's like a quiet transition phase, where the brain is already undergoing changes, but the outside world hasn't caught up yet. This is the window where awareness matters the most, because once this phase passes, the signs become harder to ignore, but also harder to reverse or manage effectively. Understanding this isn't about creating fear. It's about recognizing how the body communicates. Not everything shows up as a clear, loud symptom. Sometimes it's subtle, layered, and easy to overlook. But when you start connecting these small changes, the fading sense of smell, the slight emotional shifts, the quiet behavioral differences, you begin to see a bigger picture forming, one that deserves attention before it turns into something more serious. And this is where things start to become more practical, because once you recognize that these changes might mean something, the next question is simple. What should you actually do about it? The first step isn't panic, and it's not jumping to conclusions. It's paying attention in a more intentional way. Start noticing patterns. Is your sense of smell consistently weaker, or does it come and go? Are there specific scents you can no longer recognize at all? Have other small changes appeared alongside it, like difficulty concentrating, forgetting minor details, or feeling slightly off in ways you can't fully explain? One helpful approach doctors often suggest is something very simple. Test your sense of smell regularly using familiar items. Coffee, citrus fruits, spices, soap, things you've known for years. Try to identify them without looking. Notice if the scent feels weaker than before, or if it takes longer to recognize. This isn't a diagnosis, but it gives you awareness. And awareness creates a baseline, something you can compare over time instead of relying on vague memory. At the same time, it becomes important to look at your overall brain health, not just one symptom. Sleep quality, stress levels, diet, and physical activity all play a role in how your brain functions. Sometimes improving these areas can support cognitive health and even improve sensory perception. But if the change in smell persists or worsens, that's when it makes sense to take the next step and talk to a medical professional. Not because something is guaranteed to be wrong, but because early conversations lead to early clarity. Doctors may suggest simple cognitive screenings or refer you for further evaluation if needed. And while that might sound intimidating, it's actually one of the most empowering things you can do. Because instead of waiting and wondering, you're choosing to understand what's happening in your body. And that shift, from ignoring to acknowledging, can completely change the outcome. There's also something else that often gets overlooked: involving the people around you. Family members, close friends, they can sometimes notice changes you don't. Asking them simple questions, like whether they've observed any differences in your behavior or reactions, can give you a clearer picture. It's not about creating worry, it's about building awareness together. Because in the end, early signs are only useful if they're recognized. And when something as small as your sense of smell could be a signal, taking it seriously doesn't mean expecting the worst. It means giving yourself the best possible chance to stay ahead of whatever might come next. And when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, something becomes very clear. The body rarely gives just one signal. It gives layers of clues, small pieces that only start to make sense when you connect them together. Loss of smell might be the first whisper, but it's often followed by other subtle changes that are easy to overlook on their own. Maybe it's taking a little longer to find the right word in a conversation. Maybe it's misplacing everyday items more often than usual. Maybe it's feeling mentally slower in situations that used to feel easy. None of these feel serious in isolation, which is exactly why they're so often ignored. But doctors are now looking at these early signs as part of a pattern rather than separate issues. When smell loss appears alongside even mild cognitive or behavioral shifts, it can signal that the brain is already under some level of stress or change. And again, this doesn't mean a diagnosis. It means a possibility that deserves attention. Because the earlier you recognize patterns, the more options you have to respond, adjust, and protect your brain health moving forward. There's also an important shift happening in how experts approach conditions like Alzheimer's. Instead of focusing only on late-stage symptoms, the focus is moving earlier, toward prevention, awareness, and slowing progression. That means lifestyle choices matter more than people think. Staying mentally active, engaging in conversations, reading, learning new things, all of these help stimulate the brain. Physical movement improves blood flow. Balanced nutrition supports overall brain function. These are not quick fixes, but they are powerful tools when used consistently over time. What matters most is not waiting for something obvious to happen, because by the time symptoms become undeniable, the window for early action has already started to close. That's why these quiet signals, the ones that don't interrupt your life dramatically, can actually be the most important ones to notice. They give you a chance to act before things become harder to manage. And maybe that's the real message behind all of this. Your body is always communicating, even in ways that don't feel urgent or alarming. A fading sense of smell might seem small, almost insignificant, but it could be part of a much larger story unfolding quietly in the background. And the people who stay ahead are not the ones who panic. They're the ones who pay attention, who connect the dots early, and who choose to act while there's still time to make a difference. So before you move on from this, take a moment and really think about what we've talked about. Not with fear, not with anxiety, but with awareness. Because the goal here isn't to scare you. It's to help you notice what most people miss until it's too late. If something as simple as your sense of smell has changed, don't ignore it. Don't brush it off as just aging without paying attention. Start observing your body a little more closely. Notice patterns, ask questions, stay curious about what your brain might be trying to tell you. Because the earlier you understand these signals, the more control you have over what comes next. And remember, none of these signs alone define your future. They are simply clues, early signals that give you an opportunity to act, to learn, and to protect your health in ways that many people never do in time. Small steps today can make a meaningful difference later. If this helped you understand something you hadn't thought about before, make sure you stay connected, because there are many more things like this that can impact your health quietly without you realizing it. And sometimes, the information you learn today is exactly what protects you tomorrow.